We always hear these epic stories about great leaders, but how often do we really dig into the world that made them? Today, we're going to do just that. We're diving into the life of a truly remarkable man named Mixtli of the Mexica people to see the forces that shaped him right from his very first breath. So, right from the jump, we know where he's headed. I mean, think about it. A courier's son becoming a noble? That is a huge leap in any society. But this isn't just a simple rags to riches story. It's about the absolutely brutal, beautiful, and complicated world he had to survive to get there. So that's the real question, isn't it? What were the building blocks of his character? What were the lessons, the laws, the landscapes that could take a boy from some remote island quarry and get him ready to walk in the halls of power? That's what we're here to figure out. And to answer that, we've got to start right at the beginning, the very moment he came into the world, which, let me tell you, involved a ceremony that was incredibly intense and unflinchingly real. The scene is just so dramatic. It's late September, the rainy season is supposed to be over. But nope, the sky just erupts. The thunder god, Tlaloc, is making himself heard. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Mixtli is born. What an entrance for what would be a truly dramatic life. So forget congratulations or it's a boy. This was the traditional greeting for a newborn in his culture. The very first words spoken over this tiny baby were not a blessing, but a command. A stark, brutal preparation for the life that was waiting for him. And destiny? Oh, it wasn't left to chance. It was literally buried in the earth. For a boy, they'd take his navel string, wrap it around a tiny little shield, and go bury it on a future battlefield. It tied his fate to war, forever. A girl's was buried under the hearth, tying her to the home. From day one, their paths were set in stone. Okay, so your destiny is predetermined? What about daily life? Well, this was a society of incredible contrasts. You had compassion and cruelty living right next to each other in their laws, traditions, and especially their punishments. And get this, their laws had this really fascinating nuance. Stealing was a capital crime, full stop. But with this one major exception. If you were a hungry traveler, you could walk up to any maize field and eat whatever you wanted from the first 4 rows. Survival was considered a right. But if you were caught taking a whole sack to hoard it or sell it, that was greed. And the punishment for that was death. And this focus on core values, survival over property, honesty above all else, it trickled right down into how they raised their kids. The lessons were taught early, and they were taught in a way you would never forget. Honesty was everything. They called a lie speaking spittle and phlegm, which is just evocative, isn't it? And the punishment was as visceral as the name. They would literally take a sharp maguey thorn and push it right through the liar's lower lip and just leave it there all day. Young Mixtli apparently got this punishment exactly 1 time. He never lied again. And the discipline? It could get even harsher. Mixtli himself recalls using a single curse word, and his own mother just snatched him up by the ankles, held him upside down over a fire, and threw dried red chilies into it. He said the acrid smoke nearly suffocated him. This wasn't just a punishment. It was practically a trial by fire. This harsh social world was perfectly matched by his physical one. Mixtli grew up on the island of Saltacan, a place where life, wealth, and death were all, quite literally, carved out of the exact same thing. So his home was, and I mean this literally, a giant limestone quarry floating in the middle of a lake. His dad was a master quarrier. The stone from this one island built the great temples and palaces of the empire. It was the source of all their prosperity, but man, it came at a heavy, constant price. This quote really tells you everything about their worldview. Accidents didn't just happen. When someone died in the quarry, it was seen as the gods collecting a debt, taking a tribute for the wealth they were letting the people pull from the earth. As a little boy, Mixtli actually saw one of these tributes being paid. In all the noise and dust of the quarry, a huge limestone block just toppled off a ramp. The edge of this massive stone hits a worker and just shears him perfectly in 2 at the waist. And in this surreal, horrific twist, the force of the blow also cauterized the wound. So no blood. The man was still alive, fully conscious, but in 2 separate pieces there on the quarry floor. He lived long enough to calmly give messages for his family, to confess his sins, and his very last words weren't about fear or pain. They were just this quiet, simple, poignant regret, a wish to see the green trees one last time. It's a moment of just profound humanity, right in the middle of unspeakable brutality. So all these harsh lessons, this brutal world, it all laid the foundation for the most important trip of Mixtli's young life. For his 7th birthday, his father gave him an incredible gift, a trip to the very heart of the empire, the great city of Tenochtitlan. I love these words from his father. It just captures how huge this moment was. This wasn't just a birthday trip. It was an awakening. The boy from the island of stone was about to see the center of his entire universe for the very first time. And what did he find there? The great market of Tlatelolco, just an overwhelming explosion of sights and sounds and smells. Gold, silver, precious feathers, exotic fruits from the hotlands, spices from jungles he'd never even heard of, cages full of animals, stalls of medicines, and yes, even cages with human beings in them for sale. And it's here that he tasted the absolute ultimate luxury, a single helping of snow, brought down from the mountain peaks by a relay of runners overnight. And the price for this fleeting taste of cold? 20 cacao beans. That was a full day's wage for the average worker. And now here is the mind-blowing contrast. That tiny taste of snow cost 20 beans. But for 400 beans, the price of just 20 of those little treats, you could buy a human being, a slave, for life. The economics of this world were just as stark and brutal as its punishments. On this same trip, an old fortune teller comes up to Mixtli. He doesn't predict wealth or power. Instead, he delivers this prophecy that is both a blessing and a total curse. He sees that Mixtli will have this rare ability to see the world for exactly what it is, and the even rarer, more dangerous compulsion to speak that truth out loud. And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? We have a world where a law can be both compassionate and absolutely lethal, where discipline is basically indistinguishable from torture, where a man's horrific death is met with this quiet dignity. From this wild, intricate web of beauty and brutality, of order and sacrifice, what kind of man, what kind of noble was about to be forged?